Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious, groupies, and author of this little book right here. Not so little, lots of stories, not even half the story, though. And these other guys right here, where you can get all that, my merchandise, down in that description. So go down, fiddle about like it's a back lounge of the 80s tour buses. I wouldn't go barefoot there. No. Speaking of going barefoot, no, I'm kidding. Thank you to everybody who's tiptoeing through the tulips here with me and this family that we are creating. Seriously, you guys, truly, I start every episode because I am truly thankful for everybody who's coming over, from everybody who's gaining a different perspective, sharing your stories, reliving theirs. I mean, I'm just so excited to have so many amazing people just interested in what I have to say. So thank you so much. You guys rock. It's just amazing. The community, the family. I'm so lucky. Thank you. And speaking of thank you, today we are going to get into kind of a couple things. I'm going to start off with one thing that we have talked about here before. Both subjects I'm talking about today, we have talked about here before because, as I always say, the groupies know it long before the rest of the world. Because we're behind the scenes. So, and there's some of us that aren't afraid to tell things. And I've told these things today, and I've talked about them. One of them, I can't remember if I talked about them in one of my Seattle episodes or one of my Q&As. So, anyway, we're going to talk about, I've seen on TikTok this new revelation about a certain rock star's passing. Not John Entwistle, because for those of you who don't know, I'm the woman with John Entwistle. This is a lesson here to not always believe what you read or the hype on TikTok, and then I watched another documentary about another band who I was out on the road with and knew their dirty secret at least a year before the rest of the world. So, all right. And today, because it's going to get crazy, we're going to have my local favorite, which I'm so sad to do what they want to do. They've had to move their brewery from Salt Lake to Wyoming. But I still love these guys. Still a great flavor. This is their new one, the Mango Madness. American style. Ooh, mango and chili pepper. And if you hear stuff in the background, they're working on the roads. So it's kind of disturbing. So sorry about that, you guys. And, oh, we like to hear that beer opening. All right, everybody, grab your mangoes, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and a rocktails. Okay. And as usual, I've got my notes with me, so, I'll be checking those out. Woo! Ooh, this is a really great, crisp-looking, more of a lager style than a stout or anything, but it's a sour, so, and like I say, I always love shades. They always have amazing flavors. They've had the #1 running sour in the country for like 7-8 years now, so, from the Great American Brew Fest. But, all right, everybody, cheers, big ears. They really have taken that Kvik #1, their #1, the sour that they first made when sours were just starting out. And they've really built off that so amazingly well because they've made several versions of it. Then they've made the fruity versions. This mango, not overpowerful, a lot of mango beers, the mango really owns the flavor, but not this. The sour, the mango, everything. The chili pepper, that slight little spice, perfectly balanced, well done shades. If you guys see them in Wyoming or anywhere else, pick them up. They fucking rock. And speaking of fucking rocking, got my notes here as usual. So we're going to talk today because there was a couple things I saw that was just filling up my FYP page on TikTok. And it was, the first one was, again, something that we have talked about here. Sorry, I got to make sure I'm on the same page as my notes. But we have talked about here before. Like I said, it was in either a Seattle episode, because for those of you just joining us, I lived in Seattle during the grunge era when the actual grunge rock stars still lived in Seattle instead of LA. Because everybody thinks they have to move to LA. Ooh, no. But anyway, so I was living there when Kurt Cobain passed away. And his name is John Brunt or something. John something, starts with a B. I'll put the links down in the description. That he's coming out and talking about what really happened. Like, he was there. And So let me preface this by what I have known, what I've always talked about here. I had this in a Q&A. I had this in my Seattle years. I was living there when, and had run into Courtney at 9 Inch Nails about a week after. You know, so I was down in the trenches in Seattle while all this was going on. And all these people think they're on TikTok, think they're breaking all this. Oh my God, this guy's telling the truth about finally what's happening. And let me tell you, first of all, some of the stuff he says is pretty much on par, but these guys think they're just discovering something. Oh, sweeties, you are about 19 years too late. Because again, down in the description, I'll put the link to Gus Van Sant's movie, The Last Days. And I've talked about The Last Days. I've talked about this movie. I've talked about that era and stuff. Because like I said, I was living in Seattle. I was part of that music scene. I heard the rumors, you know, I heard what could be realities, whatever. So, and like I said, ran into Courtney Love at 9 Inch Nails within a week after she had bought her daughter, Frances Bean, which, you guys, isn't that crazy that, like, Tony Hawk and Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain and everybody all share a friggin' grandkid now? I mean, so cool. That's so sweet. For, you know, I'm glad Frances is happy and everything and healthy, but are we that old? Fuck Gen X never gets old. No. But anyway, so I was living there, and Gus Van Sant's movies, The Last Days, I have always said really is the closest to the truth of what happened. And like I said, this movie's been out like 2005 or something. It came out, and it's just really well done. And so this guy, John, comes out in his wheelchair. He's got one arm. You could tell he's been a drug addict his whole life. And when I was there, the rumor going around was that this was everybody wants to blame Courtney for Kurt's death. I can't do that, because it wasn't Kurt that she was threatening. It was all the drug dealers. If you sell my husband drugs, I will F you up. Right? So that's who the real threats that I knew of were going to, not to Kurt. I mean, yeah, you're pissed off because you're supposed to be in rehab, you and your husband, and he takes off, goes to Seattle. So the only people that were not afraid of Courtney to sell him drugs were these real degenerate drug dealers, right? With really bottom of the barrel H, just the worst you can get. So, and I that was never my thing. I've never done H. I've never done that type of drug. That's not my thing. I was mostly smoking and drinking. Pretty much it. Dabbled a couple times in other things, but was never my thing. So anyway, but you know, your green dealer could also be their H dealer as well. So you hear things. But anyway, so these people decided to go ahead and sell Kurt the H, and they went over to his house, and they just kind of squatted there. They just decided to stay and hang out for days and days and days. And this guy, John, corroborates that. He corroborates that story that they had been there listening to records and stuff for days, just doing the H over and over. And, you know, Kurt kind of wanted him to leave. And in the movie with Gus Van Sant, yeah, it's very evident that Kurt was like, okay, you guys can go now. You know, your guy can stay for like an hour. You stay at your guy's house, you know, for an hour after you have your visit, whatever. Get your stuff and you go. So, but these people, and like I said, it's very, very much, these are the similarities between this guy that everybody thinks that is giving this new information, which has really been out there forever and, you know, has been talked about not only in this movie, but by other people like myself as well. What, a year or so ago, if not more? So, yeah, watch the Gus Van Sant movie, then go and watch the TikTok stuff. But I just think it's really, really crazy how all these people are like, oh my God, breaking news. Oh my God, breaking news. You guys are dumbasses. Do your research. Because there's a lot I want to believe about the guy, but I don't. Again, he tries to drag Courtney into it, which, yeah, she can be difficult and she can be a bitch back then. That was absolutely part of her reputation. We all know that. She was recluse. She was just going, you know, being Courtney. But anyway, it doesn't mean that she wanted him to go away from the face of the earth forever. we all say that about spouses once in a while. Oh, I'd like to just, you know. But anyway, so the real reason from what I heard, what was going on was because it was just crap stuff, and Kurt, they just found him because Kurt went upstairs and didn't want anything to do with them. He was trying to get them to leave. He was hoping that they would just go. But these people are just still squatting in the house, doing all that stuff, eating his food, doing whatever they could do. And then he says a couple other people joined, which in Gus Van Zant's, I can't remember if they do or not. But anyway, so somehow now his version, this guy John's version, is the two people that came later after them being there for a few days showed up and were there on the instruction of Courtney Love, which that's allegedly. I don't know about that because I know, like I said, I heard who she was threatening and it wasn't her husband and it wasn't anything like that. So he says they went upstairs and intentionally gave too much age, that they knew. But then I heard, it was just that, and same with the Gus Van Sant movie, that it was just really shit stuff and it caused him to leave this earth. So they panicked and staged it, and then we all know what happened from there, right? So I don't know. You guys go down in the comments, tell me what you guys think. Go watch the Gus Van Sant movie, then go watch the interviews with this guy, and he's completely an addict, because after all this happened, like before, because they didn't discover Kurt for a couple days after things were staged, because I think they were staged, but how they got to staged is up for debate. I don't think it was intentional on somebody else's behalf, to be honest. I think it was just that he called the lowest, dirtiest dealers there were with the crappiest stuff, so because they were the ones that she couldn't get a hold of, and the rest of them were scared of Courtney. So that's kind of my thing with that. So you guys go watch the Gus Van Sant, then go watch this guy's new interviews, and then laugh your asses off at everybody going, oh, new information. It's not any of us here that have read my book or, watched my videos here, my episodes. Like I said, I can't remember if it was part of the Q&A, but I remember discussing this specifically because somebody had asked. But like I said, I lived in Seattle at the time, so it would have been part of. And like I said, I think Gus Van Sant got it so close, and that was 19 years ago? And these people think that they're just discovering this, like this is something new. This is how crazily stupid people want to create the sensationalism, whether they know the truth or don't know the truth. They still post the sensationalism and lies. It's all bullshit. You know what I mean? Like I said, come find the groupies. We knew long before you guys, just like I knew about John Entwistle. I was the first one to know that. And speaking of lies, and the first one to know, the next one I had watched because another thing across all my FYP page is all the new Milli Vanilli, the 2023 documentary and stuff. And I guess there's a new movie that's coming out, or has just come out. I haven't seen the new movie, but I was watching the documentary from last year. So, and for those of you who don't know, I was also on the Club MTV tour in Denver, Colorado. I knew like I said, about a year before the rest of the world that they were lip syncing, because I knew the sound man. And, one thing on this documentary, hold on, let me go. There's a lot of things. So let me start by, of course, the producer, Frank Farian, whatever, and Ingrid, his girlfriend, all these people. I think, like I said, we just had that recent music up, does the business ruin the music? In the music business, does the business aspect? And yes, this is another case of that, like how Ron Perlman had screwed over all the boy bands, and Frank Farian is another, like Kim Fowler, or you don't know who Kim Fowler, the Runaways, go look up that. But he's another one of those kind of people, the Clive Davises, the P. Diddy's, maybe not as extreme, but he's still willing to do what it takes to make a buck, whether it's lying and deceiving. So, I saw a lot of people in a lot of comments defending, oh, they were so talented and stuff. And let's be clear. I mean, I think Rob has become more talented as the years have gone on because he had a voice that was pliable. That took their first album, very much auto-tuned. That helped. But I think over the years, I think because of coaching, because of classes, and because he started to be able to use his voice to what it was, because a lot of singers do that. James Hetfield went through singing classes, vocal coaching. So he was actually the talented of the two, but really they were just backup dancers that happened to look good. And, throughout this whole documentary, Rob still kind of plays the victim, which in a way, or not Rob, Fab, excuse me. I always get their names mixed up because I met Rob and Fab on the Club MTV tour. And we'll get into that in a minute. But so when they were offered the gig, don't defend him because they knew what they were doing the whole time. According to Fab in this documentary, he's like, well, we didn't know. We just didn't look at the contract. We didn't know that we were supposed to make so many albums. What, you just didn't look at the contract and you signed it because you were so greedy to become famous? You lusted after it so bad? You are both very talented dancers, without a doubt. But were you lead singer material at the time? Absolutely not. I don't think Rob had a great voice. He was always out of tune, even after. But we'll get into that later. Anyway, so, he wants to play the victim throughout and say like, well, our presence was needed and we were needed here. And no, you weren't needed. The people who made that music were actually needed. You guys were just the package. And it's fucked up that the music industry would do that at the time, wrap this package up to make it look acceptable to what they want to cater to, or they want to think is good looking, or music. And, they want the whole package back then, which I'm glad we've kind of broken that barrier with places like The Voice, because people are back to being fucking human beings that can fucking sing, fucking play guitar, whatever. True talent is back, finally. But at the time, there was a lot of auto-tune. There was a lot of lip-syncing. And I knew, because being on the Club MTV tour, I knew their FOH and their monitors guys. And back then, there were CDs. There wasn't like computer loops that could keep it running smoothly. There were CDs that could scratch, that could be dirty, that could skip. So you had to get those all ready for the show. And there was a couple backup ones, but, like I said, a lot of people were really defending them, that they were used by Frank. And in a way they were, but I think it was a 50-50 thing. Rob and Fab knew what they were doing after a while. So did everybody else, because there's a lot of people going, we didn't know what they were doing. We just thought that, they didn't have to do sound check or anything because they were so talented. It's like, dude, fuck you. I was sitting on the FOH. And while everybody else during MTV, while Tone Loc was doing, Information Society, Paula Abdul, everybody else was doing sound check. But Rob and Fab. And because their only sound check was making sure those CDs were cleaned so that they could loop the vocals. And a lot of the backup singers were on tour with them, so they didn't have, so it could sound somewhat live. There was a good mix of that, so for people who throughout this whole documentary that are saying, well, we didn't know, the fuck you didn't. I think the one guy who nominated him for the Grammy, if you've seen this video, the guy who actually nominated him for the Grammy, he was saying, well, I didn't know. I think he kind of knew, and I think he was sick of it because, everybody thinks Rob and Fab were so sweet, and Rob, Fab might be now. Rob, unfortunately, kind of never got there because when I met them, they were already totally arrogant assholes. They treated their road crew like shit. So no wonder their FOH guy accidentally had this thing skip and everybody heard during a live performance. Never piss off your road crew, your groupies, people. We know your damn secrets. And they did exactly that. They pissed off the road crew. They, like I said, they were arrogant. They were assholes. They treated people like shit. Hell, they tried to come to our, because the tour had moved on, but we were flying back to Salt Lake. Me and Danny and Angie, our friend Angie, who was around for a hot minute. But we were flying back to Salt Lake the next day after the show, and the tour had already pulled out except for Milli Vanilli and Information Society. And we had been playing Mad Balls with Information Society, and every so often Milli and Vanilli, Rob and Fab would kind of look out their doors, and they came knocking on our door once we were done playing and we were all going to bed for the night. Tap, tap, tap. Hey, ladies. Are they knocking on our door? And we just didn't bother answering it because we had met them backstage and they just were arrogant. And there was something just really dark and twisted about Rob that just you knew was from the soul. Like, it came from another life. There was no changing this, So I just don't think there was a whole lot of innocence on their behalf because they kept it going. They knew that they were lip syncing. They knew that they were what they were doing. They knew they had already been busted. Hell, one of the guys who was the actual singers at the time was doing interviews saying, hey, this is us. So Frank and Ingrid and Clive Davis and everybody did their spin saying it's not true. This guy's lying. So they could crush him because here's these musical giants. People are going to believe the giants over this one guy who it actually ended up being. It was just, like I said, for anybody who says that throughout this documentary, we didn't know. And if you were on that tour, like Downtown Julie Brown, who definitely was on that tour, watched me and Danny be, and speaking of Danny and I on the stage with Tone Loc during that tour in Colorado, some of the clip footage from Fiddlers on the Green is in that documentary from 2023. So that means there's got to be some footage out there of Danny and I dancing on the stage, which, oh my God. Oh, it was fun. We did not want to be there. We were fucked up. But yeah, so that's covered. I think everybody knew. People are saying they didn't know. Excuse me. God, my allergies with them tearing up the roads, everything, the dust, it's just so bad. Okay, so where were we? But, in all fairness, because like I was saying, people are like, oh, they were taken advantage of. And they kind of were in a way because they were from, like Rob said, they were living in the ghetto. They were living in the ghetto. We wanted to be famous. But there's the key word. We wanted to be famous. So they were willing to do whatever it took to get there. And, they play, Fabrice still plays the victim along with it, which, dude, at least step back from yourself, because really the real victims are the people who sang that song, which we will say their names here. Let me see, where's their names? So, the real victims are John Davis, Brad Howell, Charles Shaw, Jody and Linda Rocco, her twin sisters. These are the actual voices of the song. Who, Charles, and there's a couple other in the documentary, which I'm so glad they are. Because it was their voices, and people are... Milli Vanilli was just the bow on a package when the package really wasn't what you thought it was, And I think the real musicians should get because what you don't realize on that album that they first did, on any album, every artist who plays on that album, who is going to get royalties from that album, is listed on the album. But the only people not listed on that Milli Vanilli album are Rob and Fab. So that's kind of a dead giveaway, and people are laughing about it through the documentary, and I get it. But yeah, I think Frank really manipulated him, but it was definitely a 50-50 thing. And one thing I never hear in this whole documentary, I hear poor me, poor me, poor me, by Fab that was taken advantage of. And yeah, but when are you going to say I'm sorry to Charles, Brad, all them, Linda, the Rocco sisters? When are you going to say sorry? Because not one person said they were sorry to the actual singers. Which, what the fuck? In some ways, Rob was a victim. Rob and Fab were victims, but there was a certain point they became kind of part of the gang. because they kept playing the part. And they were like, oh, we were needed, we were needed, we were needed. People wanted us. We were being beckoned. We were in America. It was all about us, 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 us. And I still see that theme. Because like I said, I do not see one person saying they're sorry to the real artists. Rob is pissed. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my notes and kind of keep track of what I'm saying. Because I get so many thoughts on it that when I'm watching this stuff, that I do write it down. And you know, it's really sad because, again, here we have the music industry being greedy, manipulative, using people for their financial benefit, and it destroys people. It destroyed Rob and Fab's life. It did destroy the other musicians' careers and lives and stuff like that. But you know, the reputations that didn't even faze Clive Davis, Frank Farian. They were totally unscathed, but yet they still make money off those royalties to this day. You know what I mean? So they're just totally unscathed. You know, Rob and Fab both got into heavy drugs. Obviously, sadly, Rob took the worst of it. But like I said, I think when I met him, it's just weird because, like I said, there was this kind of darkness to him that you knew would take a bad turn. And it did. It's really sad to hear this story that Fab is telling about the last time he saw Rob, or one of the last times, where Fab was standing outside the Viper Room and he sees this stumbling drunk alcoholic drug addict across the street, and the guy turns around and he notices that it's Rob, and he goes over there. He's like, dude, oh my God, it's me. Where's my brother? Because they lost, you know, contact. Rob got sober and is living a great life in Amsterdam with a wonderful woman, like all these kids. I'm so happy for him that he's having this new life. He really deserves it. And he, like I said, he actually was the one with talent, but I just don't think that Rob had the talent, because there's, you know, clips of them doing interviews after they were making their own album, after all the controversy, after they had to give the Grammys back, which a lot of people are like, they shouldn't have had to give those. Yeah, they should have had to give the Grammy backs because they did nothing to deserve the Grammy. They were backup dancers, lip syncing. We don't give Grammys for that. And kind of as the documentary goes on, people start admitting more that, yeah, we might have known. We probably did. And, you know, and it slips out that, yeah, they knew the whole time, but yet in this documentary, they're denying it. So people are still trying to save face. You know, it's like, I admit, I knew it. I have admitted it since my book came out in 2014. I knew Milli Vanilli were lip syncing. Not going to hurt my reputation, you know? And I've done these episodes and stuff, so I just think everybody should kind of, if you haven't watched the Milli Vanilli documentary, go watch it. You'll see a lot of things that I'm talking about. Like I said, I think, you know, people on TikTok doing comments and stuff, they're celebrating, going, well, they were really talented. I don't think, no. Fab's voice, yes. Rob's just off key. It's just this, he had this tone in his voice that just could not reach, it couldn't even be trained or auto-tuned, you know? And you can see the uncomfortableness when people ask them to sing their newest single live right there, because of course they're going to ask him that. They just came off the heels of this lip-syncing controversy. So yeah, and you can see Rob getting all uncomfortable, jittery. Or not Rob, yeah. And then Fab turning and going, okay. Fab knows that he can kind of sing, but he hasn't gotten used to what he can do with his voice yet. He hasn't been shown what he can do with his voice yet. So, and Rob, he just knows. So he's getting uncomfortable, you know. And they almost get offended that people ask him that, but that's going to go with that territory, you know, just like people ask me questions that go with my territory. So yeah, watch that documentary. It's on where did I just watch it? On Paramount Plus for free. I watched it there. You have Amazon, stuff like that. But on Paramount it was free. So because I subscribed. So, yeah, go watch it. Tell me what you guys think. And really, you guys, watch that Gus Van Sant movie and then go hit up those TikToks with that guy explaining and kind of see what was going on. Because, honestly, when it comes to that movie, I just don't, you know, what he's saying, I don't know if there was an intentional situation with the H and Kurt Cobain, or if there was just another drug overdose, you know? So tell me what you guys think. Down in those comments, tell me what you think about the Ramen Fab. Like I said, I know there's a new movie out. I haven't watched that one yet. I do want to watch it, because I see a lot of it being filmed in the Club MTV tour, and I saw the footage and stuff. I'm like, God, I was fucking there. Because a lot of people don't realize I was there through so many moments through rock and roll history, from when the kids at AC/DC were crushed to death because of 900 GA tickets over fire code, to the first time Metallica made their first video, which was a huge controversy back then, to knowing Milli Vanilli lip sync before the rest of the world, to obviously knowing John Entwistle was gone from this earth before anybody else. And the truth about that, which people still don't want to listen to, because that's another thing that drives me nuts about some people, that whether they do the research or not, they still choose to post the sensationalism, omitting the reality and telling other people's story for them to benefit themselves, which is exactly what Frank Farian, Clive Davis, P. Diddy, all these people who are being called out allegedly have been doing, because that is all allegedly. So, you know, I mean, but yeah, just kind of, I'm here to kind of give you another side of the story from someone who was actually there for both of these situations, in the mix of things, at the FOH, while the sound man was putting in the CD for the guy, for Milli Vanilli to lip sync to, at the fucking, you know, Moore Theater after 9 Inch Nails, stuck with cornered by Courtney Love, crying, which you feel bad, not that she was mean, because she wasn't mean, she was just Courtney crying and angry that she was going through this, and this giant Barney that, you know, Trent Reznor had given to her for Frances Bean. Oh my God. I've seen some shit. So, yeah, for those of you guys who are new, who are joining me from TikTok, go down, watch my stories, because like I said, I've already talked about today's topics long before all this controversy is now being, you know, brought back up with the documentary, with, you know, people saying, oh my God, we finally know what really happened to Kurt. Oh, please, we finally knew in 2005 with Gus Van Sant. Hell, honey, I knew in 1995, 94, whatever year that was, you know, but here comes the street pounder. So that's perfect timing. So, all right, you guys, yeah, go watch the Gus Van Sant, go watch the interview with that guy, go check out the Milli Vanilli documentary. Tell me what you think down in those comments, you guys. And for everybody just joining us and you're just lingering, kind of deciding whether or not you want to join the family here, do it. Become a member. Help spread this channel, because I'm trying to get my life story into my own, you know, series, mini-series, documentary, movie. I want to sell the purchase rights to my book, because it's pretty fucking interesting. All these individual things that you're seeing happening around you, I was there when they were happening. So, yeah, join that. So just hit that subscribe, hit the share. Let's get me out there to a lot more people. Because I'm not doing any rehashed bullshit. I'm doing my opinion of someone who was around the scene at the time. So, yeah, let's share, hit the subscribe, hit my bells. And we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.